All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle, and welcome to our lovely panel from speakers from Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. I'm so excited to be here. But a little bit about myself is my name is Michelle, and I am currently an ambassador at San Diego State for Adobe. So I do a lot of outreach and marketing and also doing a lot of events like these. So I'm super excited to dig into our speakers' minds and hear some more tips and tricks on interviewing, personal branding, side hustles, and even more. So we'll begin with a little bit of introductions from our lovely panelists. So we'll start off with Miss Amy Baxter, who works at Amazon as a user experience designer for Scout. And Amazon Scout is the autonomous driving robot delivery vehicle. And she started at Amazon as an intern over 8 years ago. So Amy, did you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Absolutely. Thanks, Michelle. So yeah, I've been at Amazon for 8 years. During that time, I've worked across 4 different teams. My first project at Amazon was redesigning our desktop checkout experience. And then since that time, I wrote the design system for Amazon Search and then went over and ran the team called Amazon User Interface, which is the design system that powers the whole retail website. And then 2 years ago, in the pursuit of discomfort, switched over to the robotics space, and now I'm the sole UX designer for Amazon Scout. So it's been a fun ride, and I'm excited. I've certainly learned a lot at 8 years at Amazon, and I'm excited to share whatever I can with all of you guys.
Awesome. Yeah. And then we have Denny, who is the global brand marketing lead at Google. And he is currently based in the Bay Area. And with his vast global brand marketing experience and meticulous skill set, he continues to work with cross-functional teams to create and develop creative strategies with ad agencies and media partners. Denny, do you want to go a little bit more?
Sure. That was pulled from my LinkedIn profile, I'm assuming. Hey, everyone. I'm Denny. As Michelle was saying, I come from the ad agency world. That's where I really started my career. And I was working on Super Bowl productions and global campaigns that really revolved around advertising specifically. So I was at agencies like Wyden and Chiat, really honing in on my production skills. And I headed over to Starbucks to work for their global marketing teams, where I was able to work on the brand strategies and creative productions for things like the pumpkin cream cold brew, which you can get at your Starbucks now that it's fall, and the infamous unicorn frappuccino and our holiday campaigns. And so really honing in on my strategic thinking, and I ended up at Google, which is where I'm at now. I've been, next year is about to be my 2 years. And it's really there where I'm focusing on the Google Cloud business and B2B strategies and creative production and campaign management.
Thank you, Denny. And then we have Annie, who is one of Microsoft's creative recruiters, and she started working with Microsoft in 2017. And although she has some education background, she loves what she does as a recruiter because of the flexibility and personality that she can really bring into this role. So Annie, did you want to go into it?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I've been at Microsoft, I guess 4 years now. I started in university recruiting. I did a couple different roles there in my contract, and my last role was in the recruiting all of the design interns. Embarrassing story, I thought it was pronounced, I saw UX design, I was like, what is UX?
Oh
no. But got the hang of it, fell in love with the design world. And then transitioned into a full-time role on the industry side of things. So I was talent sourcing for design for, I don't know, time is a weird thing, like a year and a half or so. And now, so that I basically was bringing in external design talent to anywhere at Microsoft. And now I'm in a recruiter position. So I'm aligned to a certain studio in the company, and I am like end to end opening up the jobs and closing the candidates and things like that. So thank you.
Yes, thank you to all 3 of you for being here tonight. But so the main point of our panel today is to really help students and career seekers up-level their job searches with creative branding and storytelling best practices that help them stand out from the crowd. And we really want to reveal the role that Adobe's Creative Cloud tools play in crafting our personal brand, as well as launching a successful career. And towards the end of our panel, we will have a little challenge where we will create a LinkedIn banner that will really kind of upcycle your LinkedIn and just create that really big personal brand for yourself. And then 3 entries will be selected to have a 30-minute one-on-one session with each panelist, or with one panelist. And they will also receive a 1-year membership of Creative Cloud. So let's begin with our little questions. Amy, Annie, Denny, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
I feel like time is going to drop on our heads if we don't answer correctly.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So we'll start with Annie first. And I know you have an education background, like we've mentioned before. And I know sometimes we struggle with finding a career that might not match with our majors. So how has your education background benefited you in the recruiting career, and how does it continue to influence your role?
Ooh, that's such a good question. So yeah, I studied creative writing in undergrad. Just really setting myself up for a ton of, job opportunities. But I just loved writing and creative storytelling. And then when I graduated from UW-Madison, go Badgers, is there any Badgers listening in? I moved to Madrid, Spain, and taught English there for a couple of years. And then moved to Seattle and was teaching in a preschool. And, Seattle's like tech central. So ended up by a funny way, which maybe we can get into later, but ended up at Microsoft in this contract. And I was so nervous in my interview. I was like, first of all, cannot believe I'm sitting here and I get to interview for a recruiter role at Microsoft when I'm a preschool teacher. But I found out very quickly that in recruiting in general, there are people from all kinds of backgrounds, professional backgrounds there, and lots of former teachers. I am so happy I have teaching experience. It helps me every day in my job. I educate candidates on, crafting a better resume if they're not kind of getting picked up, or once they are invited to interviews, I prep each candidate for a half hour, before their interviews. I educate hiring managers on writing inclusive job descriptions. They have interview training for things like, what not to say and what kinds of questions to ask. But, post interview, we do an interview debrief and just talk very openly about the candidates who we interviewed and check our biases. And there's just a lot of great education there that we're all checking in each other for. So it's a lot of even delivering offers to candidates. There's so much in an offer that's confusing. It's like, what is stock and how does that vest and what does that mean? So I had to learn myself. So yeah, there's a lot of teaching along the way.
Yeah, I like how you can still integrate your background with your position right now. I think it just goes to show that, all of our majors, even though if it's not going into that specific field that you really wanted, or that goes with your major, you can totally do something with all the skills that you have.
Yeah. I'm writing every day too,
Yeah. For sure. And for Denny, I know you're also extremely multifaceted. You work with a lot of cross-functional teams, leaders, and partners, and especially working at Google currently and with Starbucks prior. How did you get to Google today? And can you explain your experiences working with all these different teams?
Yeah, so I want to start off by saying how I got to Starbucks, because that translates to how I got to Google. So with my advertising background, Starbucks was really looking to broaden their advertising team and their global creative studio. So they brought me on because I had had that advertising experience. So I got really lucky with this opportunity to help build out what is now considered the Starbucks Global Creative Studio. And when I was at Starbucks, I made a really good connection through a partnership with another vendor, and they ended up moving over to Google and due to that really great relationship that we made, they kind of poached me from Starbucks. And so I was able to join Google for that exact same reason, to help kind of build out this creative muscle within Google. And, my only thing I want to kind of hit on is like networking really does make a huge difference, especially in the creative and marketing world. It is a really small industry. People know everyone. And so it really is about those like lasting connections that you make. And if I hadn't made that connection at Starbucks, I don't think I would be here today. So yeah, it was really a good opportunity to kind of show and prove why things like LinkedIn matter a lot. And then Michelle, you had a second part to your question.
Yes, my second part was like how do you, or how can you explain your experiences working with all these cross-functional teams? Because I'm sure you have to learn a lot and kind of learn how to communicate and just do a lot of things like that.
So going to Annie's question, I double majored in college, which was sociology and cognitive science. Go Bruins. Yeah. And I know that doesn't sound like it relates at all to marketing and advertising, but sociology is the study of people, society, environments, and really being able to like be nimble and adaptable to kind of whatever comes your way. And with cognitive science, it's really about critical thinking on your feet, and being proactive and anticipating problems. And so I do feel like managing a cross-functional team and being that central hub in marketing that ties into engineering, to product, to legal, to our senior executives, you kind of have to have that skill set to be able to like navigate in ambiguity and kind of thrive in chaos, because sometimes last minute fire drills will always come up. And we can chat about this later about what we're looking for in applicants, but it's really about being able to think quickly on your feet, being that personable and approachable human that allows people to come to you to be like, I have a problem to solve, can you help me? And that's kind of what I do.
Yes, thank you for sharing. I think it's extremely important to wear many hats, and also, like you said, to build these connections and to always network. And I'll shamelessly plug all of us really quickly. If you all want to connect with us on LinkedIn, go ahead and do so. I believe it's in the comments. But yes, let me move on to Amy. And I know you have also worked with many teams throughout the years, like you've mentioned. And I know that for Scout, you're also one of the solo designers. So can you tell us a little bit more information on what it kind of means to be spread thin and how we can really manage this?
I absolutely. I mean, I think we all can talk a little bit about being spread thin in one way or another. But one of the things that I always like to keep in mind is the size of our plate changes. So if you think of the analogy that you're serving up your Thanksgiving dinner, and if you're serving it onto a tiny plate, your plate can be really, really full. And then you can look over at the person next to you and they might also have a really full plate, but their plate is even bigger. And so it's really important that none of us be comparing how full our plate is to somebody else. I've had people to ask me lots of times, how do you do it? But I do it because life happens and this is your situation and you rise to the challenge. So there's always going to be those times where you're exhausted or you're stretched, but if you're patient with yourself and you advocate for what you need as a human and as an individual, saying, hey, I can't be doing working X number of hours, or I need to go to my kids' band practice, or whatever the thing is, that's really important, because every company needs they are going to be the most successful when you as an employee are your fully most full of life self. So I've done both sides of the coin, where I've driven myself into the ground for a particular deadline, and I've burned the candle on both ends, and really suffered both physically, and my work has suffered as well because of that. So I've learned through lots of good and bad, that ensuring that you advocate for yourself and you say, I can't do this, I can do this, and it doesn't make you any less of an employee, any less of a individual, it actually makes you stand out as someone who's able to communicate their boundaries and what they need. So that's been sort of the thing that's really stood out to me. And right now, my current role, I'm a solo UX designer. So that means I'm the one user experience designer for my whole organization is 250 engineers and applied scientists. So it's a lot of communication, a lot of setting priorities and communicating trade-offs. So saying, hey, if I have X amount of time for every week, and I am one human, and so here are the different things that I can do. And then I work with all of my different stakeholders across the different verticals that I cover, and I say, help me help you. Let's prioritize together. Let's talk about trade-offs. If I can do X, but I might not be able to do Y, and here's what it's going to mean to the business as a result. And then that's a really great platform to then start conversations of saying, and if we hire another designer or another researcher, here's the other things that we will also be able to do, and here's also how it's going to benefit our company as a result. So it's able to take the emotional side out of it, where I'm like, oh, I'm tired and it's hard and everything's difficult, and it allows you to really speak logically and have a data-driven way of presenting all the different things that need to get done.
Yeah, for sure. I think we tend to always overwork ourselves, and maybe sometimes we kind of forget what's really important and what we should prioritize. So I think that was awesome coming from you, Amy. And we have a question from Kim, and she asked, what's something you all wish you knew back then when you first started that you can share with beginners as well? And we can start with Denny this time.
Awesome. I think my answer will actually be rather close to Amy. So not trying to mansplain you, Amy, but
that's great.
I just want to kind of double down on what she said. And it's what I wish I told myself back when I first started is setting healthy boundaries. I come from the ad agency world, and it can be a little bit crazy. There's been times where I stayed at work for 4 days straight and didn't go home because we had deadlines to hit. And it sounds unbelievably crazy saying it now, but there are times where I wish I had spoken up and said, for my emotional well-being, I want to make sure that I'm taking care of myself so that I can actually give 150% at work. And what I've learned as I've kind of grown in my career is that people actually respect you so much more for placing these healthy boundaries, because you're fostering this environment and work culture that allows for people to put their personal life and personal well-being ahead of their careers. And at the same time, it kind of has that symbiotic relationship where if you are feeling good emotionally and personally, then that in turn allows you to kind of succeed and thrive at work. So healthy boundaries.
Yes.
Thumbs up.
Couldn't agree more.
Yes, creating healthy boundaries. Mental health is key. I see that in the comments. And Amy, did you want to go into it too?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, obviously, we're all in agreement that being able to set those boundaries is huge. The one thing that whenever I get asked this question, I tell folks about my very first day at Amazon. I was hired as an intern. I was in between my junior and my senior years of college at University of Washington. So we all get to give a call out to our alma maters. I called my dad on my drive home, and I was crying, and I told him, Dad, Amazon made a mistake. They shouldn't have hired me. I don't know anything. And I'm just waiting for them to realize that they totally messed up. And I've since learned that is 100% called imposter syndrome. And the fact of the matter is actually, let me take a step back. My dad told me on that car ride home, and I've told this to so many people, that he told me that if you ever find yourself in a job that you feel like you know what you're doing, or you feel like, yeah, I got this, within the first 6 months to a year, then he said that job is not going to challenge you. You're not going to grow. It's going to bore you, and it's not going to be the right job for you. Because, and this is where it's become my mantra that I just repeat again and again, is the pursuit of discomfort. That is the feeling of growth and the feeling of getting better. And it's really uncomfortable because, hey, that's discomfort. but that's how you get stronger and how you learn more. And there's obviously a balance. Like, you don't want to just jump in and all of a sudden you went from an intern and now you're the CEO of a company, and gosh darn it, that's really uncomfortable. But you want to have this right tension where you are never the smartest person in the room, where you never know all the answers, where you are always seeking and growing and being surrounded by people who are vastly better than you in your opinion, so that you can be learning and gleaning information from them and becoming better as a result.
Yes, I think that was a super good answer. I'm a huge believer in that, like, passions come from adversity. So it's definitely good to be uncomfortable as much as it makes us uncomfortable. And Annie, how about you?
Yeah, I love this question. I saw it in the chat and was like, oh my gosh, that's so good. And I often am trying to, when I'm anxious now in my life, I try and, like, this is going to sound woo woo, but like have a conversation with myself, like older me, like in 10 years. And like, what would she say? So if I were to have a conversation with my younger self, I would say, just follow your curiosities. Like, when you are interested in something and curious about how something, like, just go follow that, because like that is the magic that will lead you to where, you know, to the people you're supposed to meet, the work that you don't even know exists yet in this world. Just keep doing what you're genuinely interested in, and trying to put yourself in front of as many different kinds of people as you can, and just be a good person. Like, just connect with people, and people are the living things that make opportunities real, you know. Obviously, like, apply online, like submit your application. I promise you it's not a black hole. But I really do think it's like, just trust the magic in your own interests, your own curiosity. Have faith in, you know, like the power of human connection and network. And there was something else that, I don't know. I just think it is such a wild, big world with so many people. And I think, like, everyone here on this panel, we've been helped in some way, you know, and like I have, Denny has shared his story. Amy, I'm sure you have a story of how you've been supported, and like, because everyone has in some way. And like, everyone's very eager to pass that on. So, you know, just thinking of the world out there, and like, I know it's really, this is an event geared towards people looking for new jobs, and there's a lot of like fear, you know, it's like your livelihood, and but just having this like abundant mindset about it, like it's fertile grounds, and there are always going to be people out there, and people are always there. It's simple. We want to help and to take the pressure off a little bit. I think the other thing is, I took this leadership class when I was like in 7th grade, and there was something that was said in that class. I wish I knew this dude's, like, the camp counselor's name, because it like really rocked my world. He just said, when you put your name on something, like, have integrity in that. When you turn something in, even if it's a subject, you know, I was in 7th grade, and I was like, I hate math. And it's like, yeah, I hate math. Like, you know, who cares about math? But my name was on it. And like, I want to respect myself. I want to respect my name. I've translated that same thought to my classes I took in college, crappy jobs I've had that I hated and knew I didn't want to be in. Because when you have that sort of self-respect, and respect for the people that you're working alongside of, yeah, you never know who's watching that. Like Denny said in his story, his vendor, they, you know, form this great connection. And like, I have a similar story. You never know who's seeing that. So I would just say, like, no matter what position you're in, even if you know you don't want to be there, like, still try and give yourself the respect that you deserve.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is. Thank you, Annie, for sharing. And I just wanted to build off a little bit on your answers, but I know sometimes we can often confuse self-respect and kind of asking for help. And we think that maybe we don't have respect for ourselves because we're asking for support or help from others. But do you all have any advice on like maybe students or people who are starting their careers on how to kind of get over imposter syndrome or to get over that little idea that they have that, you know, that we don't have so much respect for ourselves because we're asking for help? Does Denny want to start?
Oh, wow. Sure. I think just self-confidence is obviously key, as people were mentioning earlier. But I think what I've learned as, you know, as we continue to work with people of all different personalities and on all ends of the personality spectrum, I think the only thing I can say is be kind of unapologetically you and as authentic to who you are as a person. And I have found that people can sniff out if you are feeling or being contrived, because there is just that filter, that lens that allows people to just not really be able to trust you or approach you. So my only advice is just really tap into who you are, and don't feel that people will judge you for who you are. And honestly, if there are companies or people that do, then maybe it's not the right fit for you.
Mm-hmm. Can I build off of that?
Of course.
Amazing. I'm gonna piggyback. Because that, hearing it, I've heard this, but hearing it from you just now, like, just sparked this other idea. And be authentic to who you are, because because trying to fit into a box that is like so arbitrary is honestly, it steals the company or whoever you're working with from innovation. Like, we all think that there's a certain tidy way to do things, you know, like this
Right.
is how a resume should look like, this is how the process goes, and this is how you speak to candidates, like, you know, very robotic, trying to fit and form yourself into this, to something that other people created, people. You can be another person who creates something new, and it might feel sticky in the process. And people might be a little like, have their hairs up, like, what? I'm scared. Like, I don't know. But like, you know, be smart, pull the right people in, be you. And we all have the power to sort of like change the culture of what that box means, and like get rid of the box, you know? Yeah. Sorry. That was
You're totally fine. Yeah.
I love it. Snaps. I wanted to add to that a little bit as well, because we talked about, you know, we're hearing about how not to, or how to be yourself in these different scenarios. When I first started, I started as an intern, and then when I was hired full time, Amazon has the expectation that regardless of how your performance has been when you are hired out of an internship, you start at a more junior level. And so when I've had this, you know, we've talked about imposter syndrome, but I felt like I was wearing this scarlet letter of my level on my shirt. In every interaction, I mentally excused myself from the conversation because I thought, oh, this other person won't put any stock into what I have to say because I'm just you know, what, and you can fit in any sort of excuse that we pull ourselves out of the conversation, what your level is, how your tenure at the company, your gender, your orientation, your ethnicity, whatever these things, you can self-excuse yourself, but then you're your own worst enemy in those situations. So what someone gave me this advice, and they said, because the thing that I was really struggling with was my junior level, and they said, promote yourself to the level that you feel like you should be or you aspire to be, and you are now that person. So back in 2013, I became a senior manager at Amazon in my mind, but and I was like, this is the person I'm going to be. And then ever since then, I have been interacting with colleagues. I have been presenting myself as such. And when the world decides to recognize that I am this individual, then they will promote me and put me in the position. Then the reality will reflect the what's in my head. And that's been this thing that I've relied on, and it has served me well. And it's sort of the fake it till you make it, where and when I have those moments where I'm like, but they're all going to know that I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm like, but no, Amy, you do know what you're talking about. And so when I see folks in the chat asking, how do you deal with, how do you give yourself confidence? How do you deal with imposter syndrome? You speak to yourself with confidence. It starts internally. There is no way of band-aiding this on the outside until you deal with with how you're speaking to yourself on the inside.
Yeah, it's like how you view yourself is how others will view you.
Absolutely. Because if I come into a conversation and say, hey, I don't know anything and you really shouldn't listen to what I have to say, now I'm going to tell you something. Who's going to want to talk to that? Like, I'm not going to listen to what you have to say, but come in with the confidence that you deserve.
Can I add on again? Okay. I was thinking back to a real situation where I was like, I don't know if I have the clout, I don't know. And there was a question here, like, how do you build confidence? So yes, it is mental. I think I personally needed to do some work to get my mental state to be like, okay, I do feel genuinely like I feel confident. And that work that I did was I looked around and I was like, oh my gosh, I am just going to acknowledge the fact that I am, a recent hire at Microsoft. I am feeling a little intimidated by some of my senior peers who really know what they're doing because they know what they're doing. And I'm scared to share my idea, which is normal. So for myself to build this confidence, I just talked with these senior people one-on-one, and I shared my idea with them. And then, they helped me refine it. And then I would go and share it with someone else and, get these expert opinions and look at my peers as not competition, but as helpers. And by the time that I talked to a few people, I felt like, one, my idea is even better now. Two, now I have 5 people who know about it and are like, yeah, we can't wait for you to share it with everyone. And so then, that helped me feel confident, having cheerleaders with me. So, yeah, that's just another way to.
Yeah, I think.
Syndrome.
Yeah, I think definitely your company culture definitely, I feel like, brings out kind of the support system, and which leads me into my next question. And I'm sure so many people are curious, what is the company culture like at each of your companies? Amy, do you want to start off?
Oh, totally. So a lot of folks have heard about this, but Amazon has what's called leadership principles, which is the mottos, the things that we hold high. And a lot of companies, you have like a motto or a mantra that's printed on the new hire orientation notebook that you get, and then it goes away, right? But Amazon specifically, the leadership principles are upheld every day. They're in conversations. They're in every meeting. We're talking about how we're exemplifying bias for action or frugality or all these different things, and it's brought up regularly. So the leadership principles it's how we evaluate candidates that we are looking to bring on. It's how we have annual reviews. You're monitored by those different things. So if you're interested in working at Amazon, I would recommend just looking up the leadership principles on Google and finding out what those are, and asking yourself critically, do I agree with these leadership principles? Do I exemplify them in my behaviors, both as a working professional and as just a human? And that's really at the most basic level, that's what Amazon's really all about. So the leadership principles are really true and show up in everything that we do. But then that's the foundational aspect. And then as with every company, there's always nuances and differences within each of the different teams. So I always recommend to friends and to people I'm mentoring and even to candidates that I'm interviewing is like dating. It's show up, looking and thinking critically about the company. Maybe you might want to work at the company, but think specifically about what team you want to work on. Ask questions of your hiring manager and other team members on the team. Talk to them, because it's absolutely possible to want to work at a company but not work at a specific team. And so if you show up like when you're dating, if you show up and just say, I sure want to be in a relationship, you're going to end up in a relationship. It might not be the best fit. It might just be someone that you've settled for. But if you show up knowing exactly what you want, what your skills are, what are you bringing to the table, how are you being your best you, and how and what do you want, and what is the best fit for you, then you're going to be able to find the best team within that culture. Because at every company, Amazon or any of the other ones, there's always good and bad, and you could always have good managers, bad managers, good teams, bad teams. So what you need to do is you need to be focusing on how to think critically about where you want to end up within any of these companies.
For sure. I think finding the right fit can sometimes be difficult, but it's definitely worth it in the end. But yeah, Annie, how about you? What's your company culture like at Microsoft?
Yay, thank you. I want to add just like some practical advice for Amy's point, just as a recruiter, for candidates that I speak with who are taking Amy's, walking the walk with Amy's advice and actually trying to do that homework. Honestly, a recruiter is a really good person to ask those questions to. And some of the ways that these questions are asked to me that I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad you're asking. You're already advocating for yourself. Like you're not trying to just get into a relationship. You're not trying to just get a job at Microsoft. You want to protect yourself and like set yourself up for the best success. So some of the questions I've received that could be helpful for others is, what does diversity on this team look like? Like, what does it look like? Like, I want to know numbers, ratios, yes. Percentages. I recruit designers, and there are some teams that work like kind of siloed, and some teams that are, wide across. So you can ask the recruiter or the hiring manager really in the interview, but just like, who do you collaborate with on a day-to-day? Anyways, recruiter is a good person to ask like some of those culture pieces too, that you might be a little afraid to ask a hiring manager. Feel free to ask the hiring manager. I encourage that too. But yes, recruiters are safe spaces. And can you repeat the question?
Of course. The question was, what's your company culture like at Microsoft?
Ah, yes. Oh my gosh, my favorite topic. So when I think about Microsoft's company culture, it's so hard for me to answer because there's just so many, like we have our company core competencies like judgment, drive for results, collaboration, technical excellence, a few others that are not top of mind right now. Oops. But those are what we focus on in the interviews. And also, when we write our annual reviews, like things that we try and like incorporate into our connects, which brings me to the annual review, because I think this is like physical. It's like our culture distilled into one little sheet of paper. So Kathleen Hogan is our head of HR. She got started with Satya Nadella. I might have the timeline wrong, so but pretty sure they kind of like joined in together around the same time, or Satya brought her in or something. But anyways, when Satya started several years ago, Kathleen spent like the first year just heads down, doing her user research and studying culture at Microsoft. Second year, she developed this plan to sort of reinvent Microsoft culture. You know, and then the third year we implemented it. And so now we have, for our annual reviews, we are all evaluated, every single person, like no matter your level, no matter your title, no matter your discipline, on 3 circles of impact. And so the first circle is your individual impact on the business, which is pretty straightforward. It's like, how'd you help the company? The second circle is how have you helped other people make impact at Microsoft, which I love because that encourages you to support others and, you know, to share knowledge out. And you have to, yeah, it's like part of our review. And then the third circle honestly took me a little bit of time to wrap my head around, but I think of it as like a gratitude circle. The third circle of impact is how have others helped you make impact? So you have to acknowledge the support that you got. I think Microsoft, you know, it grew quickly. And I think that, you know, the culture that just came into fruition from those beginning days was kind of out for yourself, like either individually against your own teammates, or, you know, different teams against each other, different orgs against each other. And yeah, they had to kind of tear down that system that was how it was. And so this new, you know, annual review process is like, to succeed, you must collaborate. You must share ideas. You must acknowledge other support. And that is like, yeah, that's like a, you know, a distilled version of our company culture. And it's like, you can feel that in all different parts of every day. Just very helpful people, honestly.
That's awesome.
We're all here for each other. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's so cool that you get this chance to really self-reflect and think about the things that you have done as well as what others have done too. But going to Denny next, how is the company culture at Google like?
Yeah, so when you join Google, you become what is called a Googler. And being a Googler, you are much like Amy and Annie, there are philosophies and principles that you kind of are naturally adhering to. And the adjective, I think it's called like being googly. And what that means is just like being proactive, helping others, and putting the user first, always thinking about like who is the user and how can we help them, and always going the extra mile and just being that kind of being a resource and making impact and driving change. And so when and another thing I really want to add is like navigating ambiguity and like problem solving are 2 really key components about like what it means to like be googly. And when we interview candidates, I'm sure you've all heard of like the notorious Google questions that are always asked. And it's never, some of those questions that are being asked, it's never a right or wrong. We're not looking for a right answer. We're not looking for a wrong answer. We're looking to see how people think on their feet. We're looking to see how people problem solve in real time, and seeing how, if, you know, how they've solved a really difficult problem. Did they work well with others? Did they not work well with others? How did they impact a certain program or project that they led? Were they a leader? Did they help resolve the problem? And if they didn't, how did they, you know, think proactively to solve for the future? You know, really things like that when we ask these interview questions kind of resemble to who we think would best fit within this Google culture.
Brilliant.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I'm sold on wanting to be a Googler now, and I totally want to be googly. I'm sorry. You just told me with the play on words. I was like,
We're Microsofties. Isn't that cute?
Yeah.
That is so cute.
Yes. All right. And I know we're reaching a little bit low on time, so I really want to ask this question to all of you. So what makes an applicant stand out the most? And what's a common trait that you all see across new hires in your prospective companies? And maybe what are some traits that you all avoid when looking at these applicants? And anyone can start.
I'd be happy to start.
Yeah, go for it, Annie.
Oh, you want it?
No. Go.
Okay. Annie, was this you?
That means no.
Okay. I got it. Okay, so I'll start with what to avoid. What we avoid. Red flags. Red flags are when candidates talk about how they were the best and everyone else sucked on their team. That's a red flag. We're not looking for like the superhero, you know. Again, like I was saying, we're a collaborative culture. That's what we're growing into, and we want to continue growing. So I think that's sort of an old school way of interviewing, is like saying how you were like number one. So, you know, washing that away is good advice. If I do say so myself. And yeah, on the other side of that, like how to stand out. I mean, telling the skill set of storytelling really goes a long ways. I recruit designers, and they have portfolio presentations at the top of their interviews. And I honestly feel like that's how interviews should just be for every role, is a presentation as to who you are. And there's so much to take in there. And you know, this is ironic that I'm like fumbling over how it's important to be a good storyteller, but
Great.
I think, you know, just owning your narrative and being able to showcase that to the people you're interviewing with. Like, you might feel like, I had a candidate the other day. She is more on the visual design side. She got picked up, and she's doing final rounds for a product design role. And she was feeling nervous about the interviews, because she's like, I don't have like product design work that I can walk through. And so, you know, that's really nerve-wracking, going into an interview being like, I feel like a fraud. Like, I feel like I accidentally got here. So she didn't actually accidentally get there. So in my conversation with her, the way that she took the interview, which landed really well, was that talking about the skill set required of a product designer, talking about so she knows the skills necessary to be an excellent product designer, and talking about the steps that she knows to take to learn those, who to learn from, all the action that she's already taken in the background, you know, through certificates and stuff that isn't on her work experience yet, but she's like ready to start it. Thinking about her transferable skills, like, oh, okay, well, I haven't collaborated with software engineering and creative marketing and data science, but I've collaborated with XYZ, like these different fields, and I can translate that to this role. And I think the candidates that stand out the best are honest with themselves about their own pitfalls, and they have a narrative set in stone. They make it really easy for the interviewers to not walk away with any like lingering questions. You know, like if she had just presented on her visual design work and saying like, well, look, I'm a really good visual designer. That's what she had done in previous interviews, and it didn't land anywhere. You're leaving those hiring managers with questions like, why? So great, you're great at visual, but how? I'm worried that you wouldn't be able to do this work. She just was honest with it up front. So I think, yeah, knowing where your gaps are, and then filling in the narrative for your interviewers. That's like the best way to stand out. Also, go through the job description, highlight keywords, go to the, your company's core values page, whatever, highlight the keywords and like incorporate that language into your responses. And that does, I don't know, there's like it's like a trick. It makes your interviewers feel like you're already there, so that also helps people stand out.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is. Thank you. That was super great insight. I think a lot of us will take all of that and bring it into our next interviews too. But Denny, would you like to go next?
Sure. I'll hit on some things that were said earlier too. Like, I think some things I would avoid are people that just, it feels like they're in it for themselves, and based off of the stories they tell or their experiences, that they're not a team player, because I think all of us can agree that all of us work in such collaborative environments that to have someone kind of working solo might not be the best fit. And just really making sure that you don't disparage previous managers or previous jobs. I think that's such an important way of, when you are working for a company, you are an ambassador for their brand. Michelle, I'm sure you know this as well. And, do you, if they have a bad experience at your company, will they also disparage your company? And I think there are ways to obviously spin a bad experience, but I think, just blatantly saying negative things about a company just doesn't really feel right when you're, interviewing for a position. And I think things that I look for, really want to hone in on Annie's point about like confidence. Confidence is key. While I totally understand that a lot of companies look for relevant experience, there are so many transferable skills between, if you worked in retail, if you worked as a host or a hostess, that can translate to an entry-level position in X company, because you've navigated really complicated situations. You can handle pressure under fire, and you're able to take these skills that you've learned in real time and apply them to help this company thrive. And they'll see the confidence, like, again, Amy was saying, like, how you see yourself is how others will see you. So again, there's a fine balance between like rehearsing and over rehearsing for an interview, but really think about like your top 3 to 5 projects that you've worked on, whether they're in school, whether it's in a part-time job, or anything really, whether you've, helped put together your family reunion and plan it all. Like, there are such transferable skills from one to another, and knowing, knowing what you've done from top to bottom on this project, and being able to talk confidently and relate it to an interview question. Like, tell me about a time where you were dealing with a really difficult person, and how did you navigate through that? And that doesn't necessarily have to be in work experience. It can be a professor that, or a TA that you weren't getting along with, and how you helped navigate that situation to come to a resolution. So coming up with those answers so that it feels like you're speaking with confidence, because you are, is something that allows the conversation to go so much more smoothly. So that I cannot stress the importance of just like being so authentically you, confident, and it'll come off really smoothly and naturally with the interviewer as well.
Yeah, I think we should put an emphasis on interviews or conversations, not something where it's transactional. And you're definitely trying to get to meet the recruiter and the hiring manager, as well as them getting to know you. So it's super important to be authentic. And then last but not least, we have Amy.
Yeah, well, I know we're running low on time, but I just want to agree and repeat everything that Denny and Annie said already. And then the 2 things that I want to add on to that is simplification. Whenever you're communicating your story, most anybody can communicate complex things in a complex way. So if you can distill and communicate complexity in a way that accounts for the fact that your listeners are likely coming from a space of not this deep knowledge of expertise that you might have on the area. I think about explaining robotics to my 11-year-old son. It's a different it's a different way of telling the story. And so while you are preparing either your portfolio or preparing for an interview, or even just writing your LinkedIn profile. Think about how you're talking. I don't want to hear the buzzwords. I don't want to hear the fluff words. I don't want you to sound puffed up and like really smarty pants. I want to know what your skill sets are. So simplification. And then the other thing is, I do a lot of my interviews. We have what's called a whiteboarding exercise, which is a problem that we work through together. And it's to repeat Denny's thing. It's where we want to look for problem solving skills and dealing with ambiguity. But the piece that I always want to look for, and I don't always get, is I want someone to come at it from a different perspective. I don't want you just to regurgitate an application to me and be like, it's not like memory time. Like, can you remember what your best social media app is like and tell me about it? I want you to see it from a new perspective, and I want you to communicate a reason why this thing should exist. I want you, I'm looking for the twist. I'm looking for someone being like, oh, we could do this, but what if we did it from this other perspective? And what if we did this? That's the person I want to hire. So give me a reason why each of your products should be existing. And honestly, we should be coming to every single one of our projects, if it's for funsies or for our employers, we should be building in a reason for existing into everything that we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you so much. This was an amazing panel today. I'm so excited that we got to do this. I learned so much from all three of you, and I was so excited to hear more about all of your companies. Do we have any more closing statements from the three of you before we end this little panel session, and before we start talking about how to win this awesome one-on-one session with one of our lovely panelists?
No, just thank you for the time, everyone, and just best of luck on your career journey. And Michelle, you did an awesome job, so thank you so much for moderating.
Thank you.
Likewise. And I can't wait to work with all of you. So yeah, it's fun.
Michelle, and I'll be recruiting you from Google.
She already claimed Google.
I'm sold. Sorry, Googlers.
And also, just shout out to my fellow panelists. We've only known each other for a day or two, and it's just been a really great opportunity to just get to know you both. And yeah, it's been great.
You guys are the best.
Yeah, thank you. This is so helpful. And put your best foot forward.
Mm-hmm.
Take the pressure off yourself.
Yeah.
Big wide world.
I love it.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
you, Amy, Annie, and Denny.
Thank you, guys.
All right, so we'll talk a little bit more about how to win a one-on-one session with one of our lovely panelists, but we have our little challenge where you can enter our Discord server, and it should be posted in the comments on how to join, but I will be teaching you all how to create a LinkedIn banner so that we can create our own personal branding and to make us stand out a little bit more with other candidates. So let me share my screen. So yeah, let's begin. So we'll first open Adobe Illustrator, and all you do, you can press File, you can press New, and then it will bring you to kind of this template page, and you can also, this is what it will bring you to. Yeah, you can always choose different sizes, and I will provide this little document for all of you to build off of as well. But we first want to start with the dimensions of a LinkedIn banner. So I went ahead and just Googled it, and all you have to do is just get the dimensions in pixels. And so for this one, it is 1128 pixels by 376. And that's just kind of our base for our template and our base for our little LinkedIn banner. So I already started by putting this little square. So I'll just remove it really quickly and teach you all how to do this and create a solid color for the backgrounds of your LinkedIn banner. So say maybe you like green or blue, you can always change it depending on you because this is your personal branding. So our most important tools really in Illustrator is to use the selection tool, and I'm hovering over it right now. And there's a lot of short keys for a lot of the Adobe Illustrator tools as well, which you can see when I hover over a specific tool. I can see that I can press V, and that will bring me directly to my selection tool. And that's what I did on my little keyboard. But if we want to make that rectangular shape, we'll use the rectangle tool. And something really cool about Illustrator is that it has like these little outlines that just kind of lock wherever it goes, and it's really smart, and it teaches you where, or it just shows you where like the middle is of the artboard, and also just like it just locks into place for you. So we'll go ahead and delete our little square now. And we'll make another square or rectangle with our rectangle tool, and we'll just do something like this. And say I want to change the color of it. So we'll go to our right-hand side and we'll see appearance, and you can press on fill, and we can change the color depending on whatever we like. Maybe we want to do black or white, but we want to do something that kind of pops out at our viewers that see our LinkedIn page. So I'll go ahead and use white to create this little border that I want. And it's really up to your own preference on what you want to do with your LinkedIn banner. So you can always change the dimensions of like that little rectangle you made, and make it completely sort of up to you. And something that I do on my own LinkedIn page as well, maybe you don't want a solid color background. Something really cool about Illustrator as well is you can drag and drop. So you can drag from your desktop, and you don't necessarily have to open files and constantly go to File, Open, find it in your folders. You can drag and drop straight into Illustrator. So what I'll do is I'll just find something from my desktop, and I'll just drag and drop into my Illustrator app. And you can really just mess around with it and just put it over. And if you want to keep the shape of that photo that you're dragging into, you're just going to press Shift on your keyboard so that it kind of is the same exact shape that it was. But if you don't press Shift, then it kind of changes. It changes its forms. It could look a little wonky. So if you want it to be like its original image, but a little bit bigger, then you'll just press Shift. And that's one way to create a little border for yourself as well. So I'll go ahead and delete that because that's not what I want to do today. But if that's what you want to do, that's completely up to you. And then, so the most important part of a LinkedIn banner, I think, is really having your name out there, making it bold, and maybe also adding like characters to it, like maybe things that you really like maybe flowers or stars, and something that really shows your personality. But most importantly, let's put our name first. So we'll use this little text tool, type tool, and you can press T for the hotkey for it. And we just really want to Command A or Control A to get rid of all this text and put maybe our name. So I will put my name, Michelle Kai. And it's really hard to see, so I'm just going to blow up the font. I'll press all of it again, and I will just go to the font size, and maybe I want it at 72. And I don't really like this font, so I will go through my little font family and see, but I really want to use Gotham, so that's what I will do, or I'll use Rock Grotesque. So I really like using sans serif fonts with serif fonts because I think it really contrasts each other. So I have my little text right here, and you can always change the lettering, the spacing between like letters. As you can see, I'm like changing this, so I want to make it a little bit like wider in between each word. So you can really play around with Illustrator as much as you want to make things the way that you want it. So I'll put my name to the right because usually on the LinkedIn banners, your profile picture is to the left. So we don't want to put anything in this area so that we don't have anything that's blocked. So like I mentioned at first, you want to put your name, and then maybe you can also put your title. So for me, I'm a marketing student. I can always put marketing student. I can always put San Diego State because that's the school that I attend, or you can create any title that you want that really represents you as an individual and as a professional. So 72 looks a little bit big for what I want, and I also kind of want to use a serif font so that we can kind of, and we can always use Courier, or we can also use Mencken, which I will use, and then you can always change the font size one more time to create, or to your liking, and then you just move it around to what you like. And yeah, you can always change it to however you want. This was just a very simple and basic tutorial on how to get your LinkedIn banner started. But yeah, be sure to upload all of your submissions so that you can be entered to win a one-on-one session with one of our lovely panelists from Google, Amazon, or Microsoft.
Maybe we can just answer a question while they're troubleshooting.
Yeah. Let's go through the chat and see.
Sure. We'll help you guys out. What you got? What you got?
Okay, how about this one? What happened from Joseph? How do you suggest trying to break into a new type of career you're interested in with minimal experience after discovering you do not enjoy the field that you received your degree in? Very good.
Annie, you want to take this one first?
Yeah, I would say, just internalize the truth that this is probably going to be a marathon, not a sprint. You at least know where you want to go, and then take the slow and thoughtful route to get there. So join meetup groups with people in that field, take little certificates if you can, join on like pro bono side projects. You can always, I know for design, you can always volunteer your services for, organizations that can't afford to hire a designer. So just like slowly building up the skills so that when, the time is right and you have a resume and the actual work experience that you feel confident enough moving forward, you'll be all ready. But one more note is that if you don't, this is my philosophy that I've learned from Brené Brown, Elizabeth Gilbert, my little women in my corner. If you don't love your career, quit your career, quit your job. Quit your career. You don't need a career. You can just have a job that pays your bills. If you are miserable in your career, like, I would say try and leave as soon as you can, or, like network your way out thoughtfully to get yourself to the next step. But I would say, to be thoughtful and building up, knowing where you want to go and like taking your time to build those connections and build your network and the skills required to get there. And just be easy on yourself, that it could be, take some patience.
I have another question from Alina's son. Any pro tips / advice on how to build self-confidence? And while I say like practice makes perfect, obviously in whatever you do, this is a really random thing. But what I've done previously is I've actually enrolled in like community or paid for improv courses. And I know that seems a little bit daunting, but it really is about like forced exposure, putting yourself out there and being super vulnerable. And until you allow yourself to kind of be put in that position, you won't really allow yourself to be comfortable in your own skin. So I think that not only allows you to build some confidence, but be a better improviser, whether it's in a meeting, in an interview, on a phone call, what have you. But yeah, that's really helped me in the past.
I love that. I have a lot of friends in improv, and I'm very tempted to take a class.
And funny enough, a lot of our senior leaders here at Google will enroll themselves in improv courses because it allows them to think on the fly and be able to compartmentalize. I think that's a huge part of it as well.
Yeah. And like failing fast and like failing in public, and it's funny. And you can get used to that feeling of like shame and embarrassment. Yeah.
But once again, thank you all for coming, and thank you, Annie and Denny.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Chat
what a
soon.
great idea. Great pivot, girlfriend.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.